Yeah, no, like as I got older, I naturally just gravitated away from it. And it's not even that I enjoy it less. I'll still get and play the video game with QJ and shit. But in general, I just be feeling like I need to use I just be wanting to be productive. But that's also just how my mind works in general.
No, I get it.
But is that also part of like the whole like that toxic work mentality too?
And
you know what I mean?
What they call it, hustle culture?
That it's hard to kind of it's hard to find simply because of unless you're at a space, especially like we over 30, all of us in here over 30, to where it's like, damn, I'm not quite exactly where I want to be at, and if I invest a little bit more of this time in it, then it can kind of like push me over the edge. But then you also have to find time to actually be a real human being. Go have like real experiences because of, like you said, it become extremely toxic when all you do is put your head down and run.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, you're not a well-rounded individual. You just, you know, you become one-sided, and that ain't never gonna, you know, when it come time to build relationships or when something real happen within your family, you don't have that, you know, background to even come and be a real friend or be a good
or the
father
headspace.
or anything.
You got so much shit going on. You don't have the mental capacity to even
for it. Hell yeah.
process it.
No, that's facts.
Yeah.
That is definitely facts. But I guess I'll say welcome back to the To Be Fair show.
Yes, sir.
It's your host, Johnny P.
Over here, real.
It's Q.
And today we got special guest, Black Pearl in it. 2-time Grammy nominated, 2-time #1, 32-time gold and platinum audio engineer. The credentials the credentials, you know, the list go on, but you know, we're very honored to have you in the building today, bro. Appreciate you stopping by.
Bro, appreciate y'all having me.
Oh yeah, appreciate you chopping it up with the fellas. So
I don't know. Do you want to give a little blurb about yourself, or you good on that introduction?
No, I mean that was great, and I'm also, you know, more than the things I've done in music. I find myself an avid eater of foods. I like a good meal. I like to travel.
What's your go-to spot here in Charlotte when it comes to like a nice little quick grab? Not necessarily like a sit down, but like a quick grab.
Man, it just depends. Depends on what mood I'm in. I'm into Asian food. I like Indian food. I think one of the best spots is this place called Zaffron's. It's in University over by Thai House. It's on the second floor. There's like a little laser tag not laser tag, like a miniature golf place over there, but near J.W. Clay and all that stuff.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
So yeah, Zaffron's is like one of the best foods in Charlotte. I think I like Pho Quin off of Central Avenue if you like Vietnamese food. Okay. Things like that. Coltrane's is good if you want a healthy bowl. So, yeah, I mean, it just depends on what I'm in the mood for.
Gotcha. You know, I just went and had. Have you had Mad Dashery? Is that what it is?
Haberdashery?
No, not that. It's downtown, inside the whatever that little like the shop.
7th Street Market.
Yeah. And they're supposed to have like the best chicken sandwich in Charlotte or whatever.
I haven't had it,
I tried that
check it out
one time, and that was cool.
Was it
but
the best
yesterday?
chicken sandwich?
Yesterday. Like I'm with QJ, and we go in there, and they got Mambo wings, and we went to DC before. We had Mambo wings, and the shit was fire, right? So I'm like, all right, shit, let me go grab a 16 or whatever it was of the Mambo wings, and get here, and when I tell you, it just tastes like them shits was dipped in ketchup. Like, it was the worst wings I ever had, and I'm like,
Bruh.
how did you get? How is this even like allowed?
Yeah,
to
but
be
you
called
bought
Mambo?
them. Like, they got you.
No, they did. They got
Just
me.
think of how good that marketing was, bro. It didn't even matter how they tasted.
Think about how many other people got them
ketchup.
ketchup wings. They killing it.
And I'm like, what the hell, bro?
Yeah. I've never had Mambo wings, but I love wings.
Yeah, nah.
Right.
Mambo sauce, especially if you go to DC. And the weird thing is that it's like you go to the Chinese spots to get it.
Okay.
And it's like what they're known for.
I've heard of it. I ain't never had it. When I said next time I was in DC, that was gonna be like first thing. The Mambo. I ain't never had it, but I've heard.
Y'all mess with smoked wings?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I know some people won't do them.
I don't know if I've had smoke.
I don't think
Smoke
I've had
wings.
smoke
Really,
wings
bro.
either.
McCoy's used to have the
Yes.
best wings in
Over there
Charlotte,
on
and
the
they,
south,
they
yeah,
do not
McCoy's
anymore.
is-
It's not what it used to be.
McCoy's
But
used to
McCoy's,
smack.
that Barbalo,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like
Yes.
hands down, bro. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so
and
yeah,
it's
them-
not
yeah,
that anymore. But
they so tender. It's something about like when you
bro,
smoke
it's the
them.
When you
best.
do this, that,
Yeah,
that mean you
no,
know.
you don't understand. Like they were that
Hey,
good.
I don't know why I just thought
they
of
were that
Ratatouille
good.
when he did that shit.
Bro, they were that good.
Word.
No, yeah, them smoke wings be killed the game for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so this would be a horrible transition, but we have obviously one of the what people would say the gurus of Charlotte hip hop. He's kind of laid a lot of the foundations, right? So this is the question I have for you: when is a good time for your favorite local rapper to put it down?
What does that mean?
Retired.
To retire. I
Hang
guess
it up.
that'd be the
Oh.
word. Is
Let
there
it
time?
go.
I mean, it depends on what your goals are, what your objective is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think if it's for you to make a career out of rapping, I think the time to lay it down is when you realize that you'll make a lot more money not rapping.
Okay.
You know, like if that's your goal as a rapper,
Okay, yeah.
to be a you know, like a millionaire or something like that, bro, there's a lot better ways to do it, a lot faster ways to do it, a lot more efficient ways to do it. Now, I think if you're just trying to put out good music that you like, I think you should never put it down.
So if I bust in the joint, I'm like 60. You know what I mean? I bust in the joint like, yeah, I'm finna kick this 16. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm finna murder their ass. This 16. In your mind, like, you ain't gonna be like, bro, it's about time, bro.
Yeah, but what about those 60-year-olds? Like, say you're single, right? And then you drop that shit, and then there's like these other 60-year-olds that are like, hey, yo, I'm trying to see what he's talking about.
Don't make you make music more than being single.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
feel like
that's crazy. Yeah, I never thought
that
about
should be
that.
one of them ones. I'm not gonna hold you for sure.
But the thing is, it's like you have to look at like what's your objective, because there's like music is not the music business. The music business is, you know, how we're gonna monetize music.
Facts.
Whereas if you know, music charms the soul, and if anybody wants to do something, you don't have an expiration date on it. It's not like, you know, you're this magical tennis player, then all of a sudden you got to play pickleball,
Right?
or you know what I mean? You don't age out of music. Yeah. And there's going to always be people that like you. So are you putting it out for you? Are you putting it out for other people? Are you putting it out for validation? Are you putting it out for money? So if it's just you getting your ideas out and expressing yourself and how you want to do it, and it's satisfying to you, do it until the day you die.
Yeah, and
I
That's
personally,
the right answer.
No, that's the right
I agree with it. And I've been on here, and I'm an avid advocate of having adult hobbies. That shit doesn't have to have, like you said, have an expiration date. But and a part of loving yourself is the fact of like knowing what you actually enjoy doing. So like what you said, the motive to the motive to why you're doing it is important. So yeah, if it's a get rich quick scheme, then probably if you done put up your mortgage and the shit didn't work, then you probably need to tap out. But
don't
if
put
this
up your mortgage,
you probably need to hit up Bank of America.
right,
or
if you
Wells
didn't borrow money from the local drug
get you a
dealer
job.
and now you kind of in the red, tap out. But in general, if this is something that you actually do from the heart and you enjoy, and it's maybe like a cathartic experience, or it's, you know, just your way of like expressing or jotting down shit, I believe that you should do whatever that thing is until you don't have a passion to do it anymore. If you're a creative, create. There shouldn't be a time stamp to being a creative. Even if you think about, you know what I mean, all the famous painters that you knew. A lot of them 60, 70 years old, and a lot of them didn't understand that their paintings would have as much of an impact. They died starving artists.
Oh no, yeah,
But,
I was gonna say Van Gogh was like that. He wasn't celebrated until after he died, and he continued to make the art up until he died.
But he didn't do it to be celebrated,
right?
And that was how he expressed himself, and that was how he got these ideas out, or the issues out. Yeah, like it's therapeutic to some people, and you know, it's that journey. Everybody's journey is different, but I do think, to circle back to your question, if you are trying to do it to get famous, you know, or trying to do it to make a bunch of money, you know, maybe if you're not anywhere different than when you were 10 years prior, maybe hang it up.
Yeah. Or change your goals when it comes.
Or change your expectations. But like I said, I mean, like you only need 100 people, or you only need 1,000 people willing to spend $100 on your music to make $100,000 doing music.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying?
The business, when you look at the business of it, it's not hard.
It's not about.
If you go independent.
Yeah. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Well, yeah, it's simple. Maybe not. I shouldn't say it's simple. It's simple.
Right. So,
I had this is something that I always thought was funny, like me just being like rapping and just being around people that sometimes you be like, yeah, that ain't it, bro. Like you ain't got that. You should hang it up. Like I ain't even talking my age. I'm just talking my base, like on your current level of talent, where it's just like, yeah, I about had enough of listening to this shit. So I can only imagine.
So I got a question for you.
What's up? Let me finish my statement.
Okay, go ahead and finish.
What I was saying.
I was gonna piggyback off of that, but go ahead.
Like being a I have other engineer homies too, and it'd be funny just listening. Like, is there like a go-to like what or?
Oh, you get it.
How often would you say that you hear somebody that just like needs to go back to the drawing board, or kind of let's reconfigure the way that you're trying to go about writing?
I think that my opinion is of no significance on their success in the music industry. Look at all the shit that's like popping right now. Mm-hmm. Like, what's that song? The FNF song. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, that is, in my opinion, like, cool. It's a catchy song, but the quality or the not the quality, because the craftsmanship, or not the craftsmanship, the mastering of the craft as an MC or as a as a rapper.
That's a good way to put it.
Is not there.
Right.
But the song took off. It resonates with people. Nobody's gonna say it's not hot. You know what I'm saying? Like, some people can, but so how I feel about that, like when I look up, I grew up, I was born in '86. So, I kind of caught the mid '90s stride when I think like hip hop was at its peak production, quality, MC, yeah, all that stuff. That was like when it was the absolute, peak that it's been on all aspects: recording quality, production quality. And then we kind of came into the 2000s, and Atlanta took over, and that was more of like the vibe, the snap music, the party stuff. We came up in the club area, in the era.
The internet age brought down the quality of production a whole lot after like Soulja Boy and
but also what it was that technology, people had more access to technology, so you didn't need a $3,000 keyboard, a $2,500 MPC. You didn't need to go to a studio where it was $200 an hour with $1 million worth of equipment. You could do it from your house. And then that coupled with them taking the arts out of school, people moving away from church, so they're not as you got to think a lot of these producers grew up in church playing drums, playing keyboards, playing guitar. People are moving away from religion. So that, in a sense, it affects the overall quality, but it doesn't affect that people have ideas that they're trying to get out. And then couple that with in my opinion, the dissonance of the world, the distortion that's in the world now, and that's what we're getting now. I mean, that's what we're getting from a lot of the new artists. Like, things are messed up in the world.
Right. Yeah.
And I'll piggyback on that to say, as far as like in your position, you probably just want the bag anyway. You don't care.
I mean, part of it,
much,
but
or what. I'd imagine if I'd probably I wouldn't care. With the artist, I'm just trying to get paid. I just want to, get my, do my business on it. But I don't want to speak for you. That's just how I would feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's yes and no. I have children. I have bills I have to take care of. So I have to do it. And what I can't do is I can't be the person to be like, oh, this isn't good music.
Right.
Because just because it's not good music to me doesn't mean that it's not good music to you, or doesn't mean it's not good music to my children. Right. And the sooner and the more that I do that, the more I'm never going to get these gigs, because I'm not going to put the same effort into it. So I have to step back and I have to say, okay, this resonates with people for a reason. Just like I've never liked country music my whole life. I grew up on the east side of Charlotte. I don't know anything about country music. But if I sit here and say that country music is terrible music that nobody should ever work on, I miss out, and I don't work on country music, but I would, because I can't say that it's terrible music. It doesn't really resonate with me. You know, I'm from the east side of Charlotte. You know, it's the city. I'm from 5 minutes from, you know, downtown or uptown if you've been here for, you know, less than 10 years.
Right.
But yeah, so we're originals. Are you guys originals too?
Yeah,
Like y'all from
born
here?
and raised.
That's what's up. Yeah, everybody like
I
tries to call us
I grew
uniform.
up in Rock Hill. I'm an 803 boy, so I'd always like to put that disclaimer on it.
That's too bad. That's too bad. So
Right, it's too bad.
bless your heart.
Gotcha.
Sorry to hear that, sir.
But go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, when you were talking about, like, is it about the bag? You know, yes, in a certain sense, but at the same time, like, no, like, it's not about. What I realize is it's not about my opinion in everything that I do. If we're working on music, like, if I'm in a session or if I'm mixing a record and I think this person is terrible, it's gonna make it 1,000 times worse. But if I look at it as this is my job is to, you know, fix these incorrect pitches. This is my job is to adjust, you know, this vocal to where the room sound isn't apparent in it, and you know that's my ultimate goal. Like, I can't change anything that the artist did. I can't change the performance. I can't change the quality of the recording. But what I can do is I can get it as competitive as possible, and that's where
there you go. Yep.
You know my drive comes as a professional.
That's dope.
You know.
So,
And before you get into that, I just want to say, all country music is white people singing R&B music.
You think so?
I think it's like just like rock and roll. I think it's a lot of, like, if you listen to, like, a lot of people, they use a lot of the same rhythms and stuff.
I don't listen, so I can't have it.
But yeah, I mean, I think I'm just, I don't really have a whole lot of input on it, but
I mean, I've heard the little bit of country I've listened to. I've been like, oh, that sounds like Dolly Parton and like Whitney Houston. Like they sung, she's done a lot of covers.
me either.
you never heard of Dolly Parton?
Give me.
I know the
another.
name.
Are you talking
the
about
name
Dollywood?
makes
Y'all never heard of
I've
Dollywood?
I've actually been to Dollywood because we go to Gatlinburg all the time.
we know.
Yeah, we go to Gatlinburg all the time for basketball. So like Dollywood is right there, but
That's Dolly Parton like owns that city, bro.
oh no, for sure I get it. But while riding in that city, I've never been like Spotify play Dolly Parton. It just ain't happened yet.
But you said you didn't know who Dolly Parton was.
No, I've never heard a Dolly Parton song.
Yeah, I haven't heard.
I will always
that's
love
what I'm
you.
saying.
Is
Yeah. So,
like
like,
a
his
Dolly Parton
comparison-
song.
Say it again?
It's I will always love you. Is like
You gotta sing a little bit of it.
I can't sing, so I'm not even gonna do that. I can't hit them
Oh,
notes.
you're saying that that's a Dolly Parton song?
Yes.
Oh, I
they
didn't know
both they
that.
both performed it.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Oh, you talking about the Whitney Houston?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So in
I
that,
didn't know.
I get that.
That's what
Okay,
I was
gotcha.
saying when
Yeah.
I say like it's basically like the same music.
Yeah.
It's just two different genres.
Now, but
of
all right. So
people.
this is a really funny thing that I always recognize is, you know how it feels like there's this huge agenda to separate things, especially based on race.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, but what you notice is that a lot of people like hip hop or R&B and country, you know, they deal with like a lot of the same things. Like they don't like the government. They don't want people coming in fucking with them, all that stuff. Excuse me, messing with them. I don't know. Can we cuss on the podcast?
You can drop
Shit.
all the F-bombs you want.
Listen, if you only know
I got
the conversations we have in the tub.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But and that's my thing that I always try to, you know, that I not necessarily that I try to tell people because I'm not really like, you know, out here, you know, advocating for anything really. But just what I've noticed as just an individual is that there's a lot more similarities to everyone, especially you know, from a socioeconomic perspective.
Yep.
You know, but they try to say like, okay, well, people over here, you know, white people over here and black people over here, and they're super separate and they should never get together. That's by design. Like you don't want everybody that's like, okay, people are making the same amount of money. Like, what do you guys like? You know, what does everybody like? What are the people in the rural areas like? What do people in urban areas
Well, you say
like?
that's by design, but that's like it's specific with like the elitists and like the corporatocracy in
100%.
America. They have to keep us separated in order for them to stay ruling. Because if we got,
And I mean,
exactly.
I think that's as we're kind of going changing it a little bit. I think that's where you get like the whole don't talk about race, religion, and politics.
Right.
But I don't think that's because people are going to argue. I think that you kind of realize we all agree on most things. Right. Most things that people argue about be like these fringe little things, and then they kind of like they magnify it. But in general, all of us in this room right now probably agree on about 85 to 95% of the same shit.
Well, that's all people, because like, I mean, if you look at it, people like DNA, we're like 99.9% the same. We all bleed red. We all put our pants on one leg at a time. You know, everybody, we all do the stuff the same as black, white, as just people. Mm-hmm. But so the differences in the world have been created by, or have been focused on by the elites in order for them to stay in power and keep people always fighting instead of humanity coming together to, you know, just live a better life as people. But it's always just whether you talk about, like we said, capitalism, communism, it's always a ruling class.
It's separation by design.
Facts.
Yeah, because the thing that they can't do is, you know, we are the majority. They can't fight us. Mm-hmm. If we all decide, if everybody, you know, you cut all the people, and it sucks because we're kind of preaching to the choir. Like, these are the people that, like, understand that. Right. You know, we all, it is what it is. And,
but hopefully whoever listens, we might get some of those fringe people.
Right. But if everybody was just like, hey, like, they're making way more money than us, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, they're using us to make way more money. Hey, they are putting the money into politics to keep us to not make the same amount of money that they are making. Therefore, we don't have the same type of power. You know, if everybody got on the same page and was like, hey, this is messed up, this is messed up, this is messed up, this is messed up, let's fix it. And we were like, brought it to them. Yeah. Why is it still messed up? We could.
Nah, so much will be changed. And that's where you go down the line of, you got Fred Hampton, in Chicago, pretty much the theory behind him being killed was based off of the idea that he was bringing, like, the poor working class white people and the black people who were upset about, you know what I mean, police brutality and being under, you know what I mean, underprivileged in general, together and actually having real conversations to actually see. But then you go to Martin Luther King.
I was about to say this.
You have the Poor People's March. And people forget that the Dream speech was like years before he actually died. Right. And he was starting to make that turn to where, like, no, actually, poor people in general, like middle class and below, like, there's so many more commonalities that comes with, like, the state of your struggle. And it makes more sense to unite and actually 100%. Go against, like, whatever you want to say the power structure is. You know what I mean? The good old boys, you know what I mean? The fucking, like, we can blame capitalism, whatever you actually want to just blame it on. But in general, like, the system as it's designed, we can all agree that it doesn't benefit people that are at a specific socioeconomic
level. It doesn't benefit the majority.
Facts. Right. Yes.
Right. And it was crazy. Or the society in general. It doesn't benefit society. Like.
Yeah, and it was crazy. I was looking at, you know, with the stock market and shit, and I've been, like, kind of listening to the news where they talk about the economy and shit. And, you know, pretty much trying to help people make better investments. I guess that's what the reason for the whole shit is. And what it all came down to is it seems as though the better the majority is doing, the worse the top is doing. So they'll call the economy, like, the economy's messed up and with everything.
Well, I mean, you can look at GameStop. That whole GameStop.
Right.
Like, it's yeah.
Yeah, but and I found it crazy that, like, well, I didn't find it crazy. I mean, we already knew that. But at the end of the day, just to see it in plain, to see it where it's like, yeah, they are literally telling us that, like, the better we do, the worse it is for them. And pretty much, it's just like, okay, then it made me think of, like, the trickle-down economics.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, it's like we're literally been saying that this shit ain't been working all of this time. And now that we're, like, getting to a point to where that transition is happening, damn near the transition is happening. You look at the motherfucking market. It's dark. It's dark. You know what I mean, in the market.
And it's retail investors making money still. Like, and like what you're saying as far as, like, when the people take the power back, like with the GameStop, that was the retail investors sticking it to institutional investors. And, like, with this whole thing where, like, the rich are losing money, but, like, I think the middle and lower class with, like, stuff like GameStop and people having more financial literacy and understanding business, they're able to stay afloat in time. Small businesses is up. And that's where, like, even if these big, tall, rich people, like, fall, that's what America was founded on. People didn't come here to go work for a company. People came over here to, like, have your farm and have your own business and your own sustainability. And so once, as a people, we get back to more of that, you'll see the, you know, the stock market start crashing, but that's just a bunch of rich people losing money. They ain't really got nothing to do with it.
It's not always a reflection on the economy.
Right. Yeah, because the unemployment, I think, is still real low.
Unemployment's low. It's historic low.
So it's not, it's not a real recession for everybody. It's just them rich people is just taking L's right now.
I see the dude on the news. This motherfucker on there crying when that GameStop shit went through. Motherfucker was on there crying, talking about we do this, all of this for everyone else, and they're gonna do this to us. Like he on there, real fucking tears.
Oh man,
talking about how he cares so much about everybody else, and like nigga, if you don't get out of here, dog, like. So yeah, you making all of that money for everybody else. Is that what you're sitting here telling me?
We'll put a pin in it right there, and we'll get to the next question.
All right, so I have a question. On the show, To Be Fair show, we deal with a lot of like fatherhood, vulnerability, like relationship shit. We kind of dive into that. I think that you specifically, you're inside an interesting space, right? Where, like I've known Kev for probably, I don't know, since 2005. So however long that shit is.
Damn near 20 years.
Right.
Is it?
That's crazy.
It's kind of crazy.
It's a long time.
But, so being that, I know you, know your kids. And I think that you're inside a very interesting space where, as a white guy, you actually have black kids that are yours, in which you're inside like this really interesting space where like us as fathers, we get into like the conversation a lot of like raising black kids, but we're coming from a perspective of, you know what I mean, just being black, going through that experience. With you, like I imagine there's probably been a lot of like eye-opening things. There's probably been just like, you know what I mean, like a different perspective, maybe even from like how you were brought up.
You're just asking like what's my experience in the situation?
Yes.
It's
and how might it differ from like maybe even your upbringing, I guess.
So one thing that I've noticed more that's different than anything else that I experienced growing up was that a lot of people come out and they come talk to me about the children. They tell me how beautiful the children are, how beautiful our family is, you know, things like that. And I remember as a kid, like nobody really came up and was like, "Oh, your son's so beautiful. Oh, your daughter's so beautiful," to my parents. But it's, I'm not saying, not that we were out in a lot of situations where that would happen. So that's one thing that I noticed. I don't know. I think that there's a lot more, you know, there's more, I think there's more diversity from parents. Like, so one thing that I've noticed, like when the kids were in Mint Hill, we went to a school and there would be it was almost like a third of, not third, or like a quarter of a lot of races, or like, you know, like a quarter white, a quarter black, a quarter multiracial, a quarter, and now this is, you know, not the right statement, but maybe like Asian and Hispanic, and maybe if I group those together. Okay. You know, and so like from that perspective, so it was, I like that the kids were getting exposed to that there's a lot of different type of people in the world. Right. My partner now, she's from Belgium. Her mom is from an island in Africa, Comoros Island. Her father's from Belgium. And she looks just like my children. Right. And she's not their biological mother. But I think that's really cool, too.
And she has a related experience as them. Well. I get that. And
so she gets to see that. And, you know, I don't know. I think it's been a good experience. I think me as an individual, I've always put myself in situations where I try to be, you know, experience where other people have come from. Okay. You know, that's like big, even like, you know, not saying that I understand the minority experience, but going to an HBCU, I was in that specific environment, space, a minority. You know, and there was a lot of great that came from that, and there was some where I had to deal with, you know, people looked at that in a negative light, from the inside and from the outside. And
I came into the drum line during that time. So I get it now for sure.
So and you know, the good thing is for me as a human being, it's like, okay, I can understand that this is not that there's a lot of different ways to perceive the world and perceive how people look at you and how you navigate things. And, I love the people that I've created, and I think they have great hearts and they have a great understanding. And I'm so, blessed to have a partner that can also help them even further understand what that's like, because it's hard.
It's definitely a specific space.
Yeah.
For sure. I don't know. I guess the last question, kind of in that lane. So I know with us, like we have like 1,000 conversations on this pod, outside the pod, a lot. And you have a son now. So in essence, you have a black son, where I know with us, we get into just the fatherhood space of it. Me, him, and Tone, where it's such a specific nuance to raising like a black boy, right? To where I know like a lot of us, we struggle with like the showing love part, the showing vulnerability, teaching vulnerability part or whatnot. But then also the idea of like building the callus in which as a black kid, there's like this specific experience that you go through. And there's like even more so, I don't think the word might not be more so, but as well as like black women, they have their own separate experience, right? And I'm sure like as you're raising your kids, you'll probably kind of see it as they grow. Like it's just like different nuanced experiences, in which, again, like I said, we kind of speak through it, we kind of chop it up, chat, but it's something that we're always very, very conscious of. Not inside like a cliche. Hey, make sure you tell your kids to hold their hands at 12 and whatever when the police come, but more inside a very, very like nuanced way where we want to make sure that, because a lot of us, we might not have grown up with like the most love being shown. So now we have like this part where it's more intentional that we have to do that part. But then we also don't necessarily want to build a kid that's unaware of the outside world and the different forces that brings. So like it's this little balance. Again, I know that you're not, like your kids aren't necessarily at that space where like you've reached that point, but is that something that's crossed your mind at all?
100%.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest things for me growing up was like, it's a tough question.
Oh no, I get it. I mean, take your time.
It's like, how do I, like I've always been a visitor to, just black culture in general. Even though I've been in places where, a majority of black high school and in HBCU, I'm still just a visitor. Like I'm not going to claim that I'm, I am a part of it in a sense, but it's not,
No, I get it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and I've been accepted into it. I'm not saying that, I haven't, but I can't say like, I can teach you the black experience.
Right.
Because I can't. So what I try to do the best I can is introduce the kids into as many cultures as I can. So like if it's a situation like where we might go hang out with Kevin Dark, shout out my brother Dark. Like, he's cooking out on the grill. He's got a bunch of Durham people like randomly. I'll take the kids over there.
Hey, can I pause real quick? You're giving a fire answer. All right, so this goes to y'all. So Doc Groove, we played this inside in high school. Boom, 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 boom. That's Doc.
Yeah.
Fucking legend at Central. That's who he's referring to. All right, cut back into it.
Durham legend. One of the greatest.
No, he's Durham.
Yeah, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever come through. Yeah.
Oh, you know
Yeah.
Doc?
Come on, my dad's a musician, but I grew up in Ibuki.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha. All right, well,
Like 2 hours actually, like watch the performance.
So, I mean, I just say that to say, like, I'll put them in situations like that. Or we might go to a few weeks ago, we went to a Brazilian party where everybody's all Brazilian and it's just us. And so I try to expose them to as many races and as many, not even races, but just as many cultures as I can.
Yeah.
My partner being from Europe, like we go on trips, and as soon as I'm able to get them passports, I'm going to take them to Belgium. I'm going to take them to the, Comoros. I'm going to take to the, to Asia, to all these things. But I do try to do things specific, like take them to a barbershop and not just like supercuts or sports clips or things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that like that's where like all this culture resides from, but it's a bit of it here, a bit of it there. Like they see my friends, they see dad hangs out with everybody from, I have a good friend that's Indian and multiracial and black and white, and Asian and things like that. And they see us all in the same environment. And, I don't know the right way to do it.
Oh, no, I think
what you just said. But the best I can do is to provide as many experiences with them to say, hey, this is not how life works. You know what I'm saying? Like just one way. It's like this is a lot of different ways to do this.
I will say this though, like what you're doing though, that's fire, because I think that's something that like not a lot of black people get to experience is life outside of like what it is so to be.
Well, white
black.
people too. It's not just a black thing. It's just people in general.
Yes.
They don't step outside of that. Like,
so
I love to take them on Central Avenue and be like, hey, we're going to eat some crickets in our guacamole today. They're like, I'm not eating crickets. I'm like, you can literally get crickets from Tacos El Nevado in your guacamole. You know what I mean? And they see something and like nobody speaks English and they're like, why doesn't anybody speak English? I'm like, they know the numbers. I just ordered off. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something you need to be scared of. It's like, come be a part of it. Don't shy away from it. Step into it. And there's some beauty on the other side of it.
But what goes to that though, you're teaching them to be themselves and to find like their own culture and whatever. A lot of time I think with black people and raised in black households, black communities is we don't necessarily get to have that nuance. We don't necessarily get to go out and experience life. Because being black, like you got, there's certain
Are we allowed
outside,
to have that nuance?
huh?
So are we allowed to have that
And that's
nuance?
what made me think of like monolith.
Are we?
But
like because there's a lot of outside forces that like sometimes keep you from experiencing life outside of that. To where like if you black and you do this, they might look at you a little different. Where what you're teaching your kids.
But there's also a difference between like somebody might look at you and that's something that you deal with internally, and then there are things that I do think from like a social construct perspective that have kept, specific races, especially like the black race,
right.
In that social framework that they expect of you. And that's not y'all, your fault at all.
It's an external force.
It's an external force. Yeah. Right. So it's like, there's a legitimate reason why you're shying away from stepping outside of whatever these boundaries, imaginary or real, that they've established.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
that's deep. That's actually a real good space.
It really made me. I got a question, like, and this is something that we generally ask, like, anytime we have a dad. And then I see that you're married. I want to get into that too, because we got. But as a dad, like, is there something like just one gem that you would want to like, if you would bestow a gem upon like a new father?
So this is not going to be the answer y'all want to hear. But the thing that nobody tells you about is how long it takes to get in and out of the car.
Oh,
bro, that shit takes forever. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, I'm not trying to, downplay what you're asking.
Yeah.
But,
that's a bar.
Getting in and out of the car, like having patience with that. I think one of the biggest things as a new father is, are you with the mother?
Yes.
Okay, so the patience. Do you have to have patience with her as a human being? I think as a man, you need to pick up the slack. I think that you don't understand what it's like. We don't understand what it's like to have that type of emotional change, that chemical change in our bodies. Okay. And the more as a man that you can pick up the slack during this time, because we can't feed the child. Like, our breasts don't make milk.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they're inevitably going to have to do that. But anything else that you can do, the more that they see that you're there to help, the more it makes things easier. The child needs to be comforted for the first 3 months of their life. It needs to be picked up when it cries. It's not, we're going to leave it alone. It's 6 weeks old. We're going to leave it alone and teach it not to cry. Like, no. You pick that kid up and you comfort it. After 90 days, they can start to do some things to manipulate, and then you can try to regulate. But for that first 3 months, you comfort the child and you help the mother. You do whatever you can, even if you're tired. Like, fuck that, bro. You'll be all right. Like, everybody did this.
Yeah.
You'll be all right. I promise. And the more that you can show, like, I'm here to do this, that resonates and that energy comes onto the child. The people that that are like really pessimistic about life are most of the time the people that didn't get their needs met when they were little.
Nature versus
That's
nurture.
a bar.
That's crazy.
That's
Right?
That's a bar. That's a
Right?
bar.
And it's not just a woman thing. Yes, like traditionally we think that women are supposed to, handle all this, but they can't. It's too much. It's too much as a human being. Now, if you don't have an option, that's what they do.
Right.
But when there is an option, bro, you gotta do this as an adult, as a dad. And what will happen is you'll notice that the kids listen more, they respond better, you have better communication, you have a better relationship with them. Like, I look at you and your son, bro, I'm so happy for you. And I'm so proud of what you do with your son. Thanks. And I don't know, all I can go off is what social media is, but like, it looks like your son is respectful. It looks like your son listens to what you say because all you did was put the effort in. Like, I have good human beings. Like, my children respect people.
And that is a beautiful thing and that's the second time you said that.
That's a great compliment.
That is, it is very big that you're consistently saying, I have good human beings.
They're good humans.
Good humans. That is something that we need to, as parents, I think that is really the goal.
Right.
The goal is to create good humans.
Well, that's all you can control. Because like your kid's gonna be. I don't have a kid. Just like but I just look. I got a bunch of friends that are great fathers, and I've seen that. I had a great father, but that's one thing that as far as like the kid's gonna be the person. If you have you're having a person. It's gonna eventually grow up, have its own thoughts and everything. So all you're raising is a human. Whatever human the kid decides to be. It's your choice whether you're gonna like love that human for who they chose, who you created.
But you can shape it too. You can shape the child.
You can shape it, but I don't think. Yeah, and I definitely agree. There's things you can do, but I think at the end of the day, like you're raising, like they're gonna make their own decisions.
For sure.
And this is what, and I get what you're saying, and I've actually had this conversation multiple times. One thing that I think is that I think we place too much. We place it too much like mystery on the type of decisions and the type of person that the child will grow to be. We place a lot of mystery on it, whereas I think that like the child is going to be based on the environment that you create for them, the environment that you allow the child to be in. I think that's a big part of it, and I think we just be like, oh well, I ain't saying that each child is not going to be different. I think that each child is different, but I think that the part that we have in the raising of them is what actually gets the end result. It's not this, they're just going to be different and, like it's not just all up in the air.
Who are you? What makes you?
You have the twin studies that would say different. My bad.
No.
But go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, the way I see it, and we are an accumulation of the experiences that we have as a human being, Like if you find that it's safe to express yourself when there's a difficult situation, you're going to go about conflict differently than someone that experienced that it wasn't safe to express themselves.
Right. Okay.
Or someone that was like, hey, when there's a serious situation, it could get physical. Whereas someone else was like, when there's a serious situation, that was talked out. There's a lot of different ways. We're just an accumulation of the experiences.
Well, I think
that we have,
but I think it still goes into like that classic psychology, thing of nature versus nurture, where what I'm referencing is the twin studies, where like two twins can respond to the same or different circumstances completely differently. That's been studied for years and years and years, where there is an innate part of like your biology that is specific to you. Mm-hmm. And how like you take it, where like you can have somebody that grows up inside a tough situation and then uses it as motivation, and if somebody that grows up in a tough situation and they cower to that, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's his own little specific thing. But I also do believe that you as a parent, there is a major part. I think that it's a sliding scale. I don't know what the scale is, but I think that nature and nurture plays a part in it. So how you raise your kid is a influence to what their end result's going to be. I think there's also a piece of like their individual autonomy. No matter how much good advice you can give them, no matter how many lectures. Like we've all been kids in which we understand that we can be told the right thing a bunch of times, but sometimes the experience part of it is the part that you actually learn from.
Well, no, I think because we actually had a question posed to us a little earlier. I think it'd be a good time to drop it now and get Kev's opinion on it. But it went to like, old head asked us about legacy and how to make your kids value your legacy, and how do you go about, like, as a man, you building, we out here creating our own empires and creating everything, and there's gonna come a point in time where we have to hand it down. And how do you how are you gonna teach your kids to value, like, your legacy, and teach them to take it in the direction that you want to take it, or you see it going?
Man, I don't know what my legacy is. You know, I think my ultimate goal is not for them to take on anything that I've ever done. My ultimate goal is to prepare them the best I can for whatever I think the world is going to be when they become of age. You know, like how to navigate that world. You know what I mean? Because, like, the path I've chosen is not a path of comfort. It's not a path of consistency, you know? And I don't ever want that for them. Like, I would much prefer them, I don't know.
So
there's a lot of different ways to look at it, but
I'll give context to what he's asking, right? What he was asking is more so the idea. So we was talking to old head here, his pops or whatnot, and his main thing is, as a father, is that the wealth that I want to be generational. Yeah. How do I get that to where my kids don't fuck it off, and to where that this is something that I'm setting them up to be able to make generationally each generation
better than the next
one, right? In which, like, I know for us, we sit and have conversations about that a lot, where, like, we progressively want our next generation to kind of I don't know, well, I guess easier, right? We'll put them through different versions of adversity, but we want them to have, you know what I mean, the ability to choose what their adversity is. And so for him, what he was saying is that, boom, like, I invest heavy. I do all these different things, right, that I'm building not for me specifically, but I'm building to have this resource for all my kids. But I don't want them to be Paris Hilton. I don't want them to be like these rich, spoiled kids that just trick off the money and then it's gone and then they are left, you know what I mean, distraught. What it is that I want to make sure that I instill whatever, like, how do I instill these specific values in which these kids will now be able to take what I worked for to give to them to be able to build a life, an even better life for themselves and an even better life for the next lineage.
Right. Well, I think that, me personally, I think that's a lot of pressure to put on someone to assume that that's what they want with their life. But if we step aside from that,
but just the resource part, I guess. That's
but just the resource part of it. I mean, I don't think that there's a way to establish that without them having to put in the work and put in the effort. So I think it's one of those things, like, if you've ever read, like, a Rich Dad Poor Dad, you know, it's like they didn't start out by giving them, you know, the blueprint. He was like, work a job.
Right.
Let you know how a 9 to 5 is, especially like if you're in a position to put them, or like to give them a lot of money or invest in a lot of money, or do all those things. Like, giving things to someone, you know, giving someone a fish, you're going to have to continue to give them a fish to eat. Teaching someone to fish is the difference. You know, now, do I want my children to struggle? No. But do I want them to understand that this is, like, do I want them to capitalize on what I'm able to leave them? Yes. But do I not want them to understand and be out of touch to what it is that they have access to now? Like, no. Like, understand, what is it like to work a $10 an hour job? What is it like to work a $20 an hour job?
So, and I guess, so what you're touching right on, like, the exact thing. So what I'll say is, right, with us, all three of us, I think we had a conversation with Jeff last week.
That's my guy.
That's the thing. Like, you hit it right on the head, but it's always like, how do you do that? Because what you also hear a lot is that people that they'll be like, nah, I'm gonna make my kids go through this, and the third. Like, all the trauma that I went through to be able to build me to what I am, and that's how I'm gonna get them to appreciate the shit. But then it's also like, that's not really the answer either, inside my eye. where, yeah, I think that it's.
Sorry, I'm not trying to cut you up,
Oh,
but
no, go.
that's funny because I look at it completely different.
Okay.
So what I did when I was coming up in the music industry is it was super hard. Like I put in a ton of work to just try to get credits, to try to do these things, and I got shitted on credits, like for a lot of the stuff that I did.
Yeah.
And so when I got in a position when I was really generating a lot of credits, when I was really generating, I was doing like these big records, I started putting on people around me the best that I could, like throwing them credits, like here, yeah, you're going to get a gold record on this. You're going to get a platinum record on this. Let me, let me throw the assist to you on this one. And the thing that happened with that is that I got shitted on. Mm-hmm. They ran off with it. And then I looked at that like in a completely different way too. And it's like, well, how do I instill these principles in my kids, my family? Yeah. And I just started looking at it. I don't want to give anything to them, but I do want to have the support for them that they need. But they have to put the effort in. Like I don't push my kids to. Yeah, I don't push my kids to do anything. But I see my daughter playing guitar every day. Yeah. Right. She goes to Northwest. She's in the musical theater program, and I don't think she likes musical theater. I think she likes guitar, and every day she's practicing guitar. She's not practicing musicals. So every day I'm like, let me hear you. And then I'm not telling her what to do, but I'm like, did you tune the guitar today? She's like, no. I'm like, you got to tune the guitar every time. So like little things like that. Mm-hmm. She keeps doing it. She keeps, just establishing those fundamentals. And that's what I try to do. It's like, let me see where you're at. Let me try to establish this thing. And then when it's time to bring you into whatever I have going on, let's do it.
Dope. So I think that was a great answer. Yeah. Great answer. All right, we'll put a pin in it, and then we'll throw the ties for who asks you anyway.
All right, so I have a question, and my question is hookup culture and situationships detrimental to the growth of the black community?
Yes.
Expand.
Yes. No, I would definitely say, because like when we start talking about like generational wealth and like building and passing legacies down, that hookup culture, that's how you end up with the family structure the way it is, where kids out of wedlock and all of that. There's a lot that goes into that hookup. There's a lot of consequences for it that may not be seen in the moment, but 5-10 years down the road, when you got 2 or 3 kids and you're not married, or whatever, you see the detriments of it. And like I said, I think a lot of that shit's pushed on by liberal media, the leftists. I think they kind of push that on black people as far as like the conservative mindset.
They push what?
Just like progressive, the way the relationships are with everything as far as like
they
the
push
hookup culture.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I definitely think it comes because conservative. That's not a part of conservative culture, as far as like the religious, the evangelical, where it's all about the family. That comes from the left, where they don't necessarily, the family structure can be fluid. And I think that's detrimental to black. I think that's where that comes from. So that's just my opinion on it. I'm probably I don't know if I'm right or not, but that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, no, I would definitely say hookup culture is a negative to the. I would not even just black community, but black community or any other community as well. I think that from the problem I see in it is that, and I always say, goddamn, the only thing that keeps a relationship going keeps a relationship going is the decision every day that I'm going to be with you. Mm-hmm. My consistent decision every day that this is where I'm going to be, regardless of like the bullshit. Because in any relationship, you're gonna have those fucking ups and downs. That everybody knows that. So I think that what hookup culture does is it makes you believe that it gives you so many different options. Options, and then just being with so many different people. What you do is I like this about this person. I like this person. I like this. And then what you try to do is it will literally make you believe that this thing, that all of these, you can combine, you will find this combined great thing that just doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And you're literally, that's why you're going to be single. Oh, I'm not going to settle. I'm not going to settle. At the end of the day, anybody that has anybody over an extended period of time has settled. Nobody has the perfect partner. Nobody has that. What it is that I value you enough to, to say that this is where I want to be. Mm-hmm. This is where I want to be. And you can, yeah, I think that's what it does. All this hookup and all this looseness that we are, you know what I mean, seeing and just seeing social media and just in general, like all this shit is definitely to the detriment. Not only because you're going, like we said last time, talked about unprotected sex. Not only are you got kids that's coming, you know what I mean, from this shit because you don't want to be intentional and like about the decision you're making. Is also the fact that like it makes it so that I think it's harder to it makes it harder to understand that you are dealing with human people. Like everybody gonna have flaws. It makes it harder to accept people for what they are. So you get more fake shit.
I guess so. I'm gonna try and find a nuance, right? So, is hookup culture detrimental? I think that there's an age range that it is or isn't. So, I think that the younger you are, explore your options, right? If we go 25 and under, whatever like a healthy space is, explore your options, understand what you actually like so that we can have more actual long-term relationships when you get older. It is important to be able to find out what you like, right? A lot of times we end up letting society tell us what we like, or, our parents or whatever, where we can go into like the setup of the household. Some people want traditional when you need to be in a modern structure. Some people want modern when you might want to be in a traditional structure. And I think that understanding exactly what you as a person likes is very, very important. And I think that comes from dating. Not dating just one person, but multiple people, and actually understanding. But I also don't think that that's something that should happen.
Can I push back on it a little bit? When you say,
I ain't even finished yet. Let me finish the whole point.
Okay.
Let me finish the whole point. All right. But, I think that dating inside like under 25 or like whatever a good median age is really, really important just to understand and learn exactly what it is that you like, because of when we look at divorce rates, right? We can look at that through any generation. It's always been high, right? But I also think that especially younger, when you're marrying just off of like the strength, because this is the right thing to do, and you actually don't know what you like, and then you grow into yourselves as humans. And we all can attest that at 21 we're different than at 30,
Facts.
right? And the needs that we want, the wants that we, whatever, however you can kind of frame that, it would be way different than at that time. So what we're selecting for at that moment is way different. To where a lot of us, it comes from the fact that we've experienced experience. And I think that that's really, really important. So I think that's the nuance in it. But in general, when it comes to hookup culture, I do think that it's a negative effect after you get to a certain age, because of, if we're talking generational wealth, if we're talking building the black family, it does have to be a family structure. So like after a certain age, if you're still being negligent in what you're doing, it's only going to leave yourself to a toxic space and toxic situation. My
only pushback when you said dating, like I think there's like I think you were more talking like dating like with intentionality. Well, I don't think most people under 25 really are dating with that same intention. I think under 25 it's more of a hookup culture. You're like, oh, she's cute, let me just hook up with her. Where you're talking about like dating and
we're speaking in the sexual sense, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what I imagine hookups are. Like, yeah, but I'm saying you're talking about like it sounds like more like monogamous. Just I'm gonna date her for months. But when I think of hookup culture, I think of more just like just hooking up, with like just randoms versus like when you're talking about dating, where dating seems more.
Dating is different.
I'm choosing one person. I'm gonna see if I like this.
To me, I think all the same though. So my bad. Let me re-listen to like. What's your pushback?
Let me finish. I was gonna say, I think hookup culture is way more like if you're talking about dating, that leads to if you do that under 25, but you're over 25, you're gonna be ready to like, let me just find this one and get married and settle down. Well, if you're in hookup culture, you're just getting randoms and like he's saying, you're just finding like what you don't like in people and necessarily like looking to compromise or doing, and that could be detrimental even from a young age because it could teach you a pattern of not settling. And then once you get older, it's just that much harder to find somebody to settle with. And that's what I was thinking about hookup culture is just versus where you were talking about dating. I think that's kind of two different things.
I'd agree. Dating is different than like hookup culture. Dating in your early ages that's different than when I think of hookup culture. I think of like just that whole single and you know what I mean. You just doing I'm going out just to find me. You and we're gonna go out. Let's go out and get some bitches. You know what I mean? Yeah. That type of thinking. To me,
I think all of those things is
dating
important.
is different.
Dating is definitely different than just going out and trying to like.
My point is that I think that even if you go in that nuance, I think that all that shit is important, right? Because of it is really hard to tell a nigga that has 1 or 2 bodies at 30 that the grass ain't green over there. It's a fact. It's a fact, right?
That's true.
But guess what? Like that guy that's done did it, you're gonna be like, oh, the grass is the grass. It's weeds over there.
I mean, I'll give you
it's crabgrass. It's 4-leaf clover. Like all that shit's over there on the other side of the fence. I ain't even gotta like sit and think about it, worry about it because of now I'm gonna cherish the shit. Like if you haven't actually experienced experience, then I think that you're gonna be subject to the game in general. Mm-hmm. And that's the point that I'm making. Is that like you gotta kinda like at a certain, up to a certain age, I think it is healthy to make sure that, quote unquote, you sow your wild oats. That's why there's a whole lot of saying.
Oats.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of saying, right? But I don't think that. I think it becomes toxic at that specific age point, and that's where I say that hookup culture isn't healthy because of like after you get to a certain age point, like we gotta actually really.
What's the age point?
And this is good because like, we spoke a couple times in the pod about like when is it important for men to start dating with intention? I think that my range is around the 25 to 28 range. I would probably say like closer in like 28 because I also believe that your first time dating with intention probably ain't gonna work out because of like if you've been a bachelor for a long enough time, you actually have to learn to be in a relationship. And as guys, a lot of times we walk the line of the fallacy that as soon as we want to be inside a relationship and be a good partner, we can just do it. And we can provide and do all the things that it means to be a good partner inside all the capacities of it. But the reality is no. Like you actually have to learn that, you know what I mean? Like there's parts of you that has to be compromised. And it's easy to tell somebody else that you got to compromise. But it's harder to understand that, okay, this mirror is reflected to me, and this isn't the first person that told me this in this capacity. And that, okay, this is something that I got to grow with. Or, damn, I'm not actually open to being vulnerable. And this woman would love me to be vulnerable, but I can't do that. Or, like you can go down the line of, like, a lot of these different things, but until you date with intention, them shits don't really happen. And come up, go ahead.
So I got a question. So and then this made me think about our last the getting dropped off shit. So, like literally, what you're saying is that men and women both, until the age of 28, should get dropped off and drop off whatever you can from until that point because that'll allow you to really know what you want. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not going into blanket statements, right? But I would say that...
Are you asking, do the same rules apply for men as do for women?
I'm not asking that because at the end of the day, based on what I know of you when it comes down to that, that's an equal thing.
That's an equal thing?
Right. So, or at least says that like men and women, it's not like women should make sure that
there's not a difference between what men should do and what women should do.
Right.
I've never ever said that.
No, but based on... So you're saying that a woman... Well, Jenny, so you're saying that a woman should have, even if she's trying to figure out where what she likes.
Should a woman get dropped off a couple times to see what she likes?
She should have multiple stops.
Yeah.
Hold on. Until the age of 28, until the age of 28, either of them should drop off and get dropped off. You know what I mean, so that you can critique your. The things that you actually want and need for marriage. Is that your opinion?
So what I would say is that I don't think that it's important. Like I think because I don't necessarily want to go down like the whole body count thing, but I think that should a woman experience different guys in different situations, for sure. Like before 28 or whenever the age as a woman it is that you feel that you're ready to kind of be serious in a relationship. I think that it would be foolish for you not to experience, date, and fuck other guys.
But hold on, and should she sow her royal oats as well? That's pretty much. Should she sow her royal oats?
Everybody got
so
oats,
that she can make sure that she knows what she
that's
wants.
subjective. Like, what does that mean to you? Like,
right.
what is like a normal amount of exploring versus sowing your royal oats?
Glizzy.
But no,
I get it. I agree.
What he's saying is a fact. And then I mean, like, we also don't sit on a ledge of like there isn't different critique for women as males that you know what I mean, like just in general, a woman sleeping with like an excessive amount is different than a guy sleeping with an excessive amount. We're not gonna pretend that's not a thing. But inside a reasonable amount, do I think that is it important for a woman? If I had a daughter and I gave her advice, I would tell her honestly, make sure that the guy that you
No, go ahead. No. I have 2 daughters, so
yeah, no.
I can't co-sign that one, boy.
No, but you got to actually allow the actual real answer.
But
right?
why would you not want that though? Why would you not want it for your daughter, but you want it for your son?
But hold on, before you
ask real. Yeah,
no.
I got 2 daughters and 1 son, bro.
I want to make sure I answer it before we go somewhere else. My point is that in general, if you really and not all right, so like let me know if we're gonna be serious or not, because we're gonna all right, cool.
I'm listening.
Oh no, all right. So let's have a real serious conversation, right? So I think that you would do your daughter a disservice if you tell her to marry the first guy she fuck, because of her discernment as a woman might be off. So in general, I'm gonna really tell my daughter that you probably gonna want to date, and it's like crush your guy ego, crush all that shit. Like, you really want to date a couple guys. You're gonna get dropped off by a couple guys, but you want to know what the actual real result of that shit is? She's gonna really know how to pick a fucking partner, and that's how it really comes down to it. And like we got to destroy our ego at certain points, where like if you really want your daughter to have a healthy, successful relationship, she's going to have to date more than one guy before 28. And like, again, like when we go back into the idea of like a woman should only date 1 or 2 guys, like it's not, that's not healthy. If my daughter shouldn't fuck a guy or get dropped off X, Y, and Z. It's not an actual real healthy perspective of getting.
How old is your daughter?
I agree with that.
My daughter is
it's
a
she's
fact.
2 years old.
Okay, so right now you're observing this conversation from the perspective of your daughter's 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
For sure.
But your daughter's going to be 16, 18, 20, 22, 24.
25.
You know,
Right.
when you get to be that age, don't think about it from your daughter being 2 years old right now. Of course, everybody's super protective of their children, but they have to live their life, you know, and then they have to experience these things to know. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily has to be a sexual thing, but that's part of what we do. Like, I don't know what age you guys started having sex at, but
well, what you're speaking to is they're humans.
They're
like
humans.
Women,
that's
like
right.
Women, like women, girls,
right.
like because I got nieces, a sister, a bunch of like I get you, like the advice I give my nieces, like I understand what's about to. I can't like protect my nieces from. They gonna do what they gonna do. I can only give them the best advice.
You just give them perspective
within what they're already gonna do.
Yeah.
Like if you have a daughter, she's gonna do it. She every person is gonna do what they're gonna do.
You do your best job in making them the person that you think the world needs, you know. But they have to experience it. And what does that come from? Like failure. And I'm not saying that sleeping with someone is a failure, but you know, like doing things that we don't. When we do it, we're like, okay, that wasn't the best decision, so I'm not gonna do that again. That's what makes us who we are as a person.
That's
how you
know what I'm saying? So like. Bro, I've had sex with people that I was like, why the fuck did I have sex with that person?
Oh, yeah.
Why could, like, so I have to expect that my son and my daughters are going to do that to figure out who they are as a person, you know?
And I 100% agree with that, right? But
but having a 2-year-old, you look at your daughter, like that's a hard thing to
and see,
come to terms with.
The thing for me is not necessarily... I hate when we use extremes, like to say like her sleeping with one person and then she's 28. Like that's not even like really because I seen so many, and you're right. I done seen chicks that was like in the hood getting passed around, and then they end up getting married before all of the rest of the chicks. You know what I mean? They end up understanding that they was fucking up, and you know what I mean, and they become good wives. I've seen that. But at the same time, the point that, well, for me, I believe that, like, I believe in getting married early. I believe
what's early to you?
To me, I got married at 19.
But why do you believe that? Why do you believe that?
Well, the reason I believe that is because and at the end of the day, like, based on his response, right? Like, you can be 28, and then from 28 to 35, you'll be a completely different person too. From 35 to 45, you'll be a completely different person then as well. So just because the thing is that I believe that sustainability comes from, like I said, the decision every day that this is what, and I'm going to make this work because this is what I want. Right. Versus I can get something better. You could always feel like you can get something better.
No,
you could always.
And I understand where you're coming from, but I also don't believe that, like, the what is it, the frontal, the lobe, the frontal, the cortex. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you don't develop until you're 30.
Oh, I didn't know that. It's at 30?
Yeah, it's like right around 28.
Right, yeah, 27. Yeah, like late 20s, early 30s. So, but
that's why, like, at 28, you realize the world so much.
I got one question.
But before we get there, one thing that works so well with my partner and I, we've been together for almost 2 years. Mm-hmm. We haven't had a fight, right? We've had issues, but we communicate. We've both been in previous marriages. But one thing is that we understand where we are. We understand where we're going. We put in the effort to learn ourselves as people. And that's why, to me, that's why it works so well. And what I get concerned about is when people are young, is that they don't understand that there is, that you don't have to deal with those things. Like, that you can communicate, that there's, once you develop that, once you develop the frontal lobe, that then you approach things much differently. And that's the only concern that I have with, like, the 18, 19, 20, early 20s, first love scenario that you have with people. And plus, you're not where you plan on being for the rest of your life.
Can I build on that? Ooh, and I got one question for you as far as, like, what he's saying. That's absolutely true. And, like, would you do everything the same way, knowing what you know now? Or would you go back and was there any, like, differences or like knowing what you know now about everything we done talked about and how people evolve, would you do anything different, being that you believe in getting married early and knowing the trials and tribulations that may come with that versus waiting and doing it later?
To be completely honest, right, that's a good question, because I honestly don't know whether I would or not. What I will say is that, like, me and my wife, we were married like 11 years before we had a child, so that's different.
Yes, and that's a really good amount of time to get to know each other and to love each other and to connect
and to go through all of the
and to learn how to love each other too.
And what I say is that, like, I've dealt with different women. The thing is that we can talk about, like, the frontal lobe developing and all these different, I ain't know that, but I understand, like, you know what I mean? You get to a point, and I remember when 27 something just, you know what I mean, clicked. I'm like, okay, it's time to buy a house. It's time to start taking shit serious. You know what I mean? And at the same time, like, I don't think that, like, and even just based on the women that just women. I'm a man, so I'm not looking so much as, well, no, even the dudes I know. You can say the frontal cortex develops, but motherfuckers still shell.
Right.
Motherfuckers still shell. So,
it's
like,
a general statement.
Yeah, no, I know, I get that. I'm just saying, like this is not a time. It's you can.
Yeah, motherfuckers
it doesn't
really.
To me, that doesn't change when you should. Because the reason why I say I like the idea of getting married earlier is because of the fact that, like, me and my wife even separated at a point for like a year and a half, 2 years, and the thing is that, like, when you have that growth and that just being with that person for so long, of course you're gonna have we done had some shit, like, and we still developing better communication with one another. And what I realize is that, like, I don't mind the journey. Like, I'm with the journey. Like, I don't want to do that. Starting over with somebody else it's not even attractive to me. Like, I appreciate the journey, and I don't know. Like I don't find it. It was tough.
So are you just comfortable? Like you just don't want to start over with somebody else, or do you are you really into your wife?
Yeah, I really. What
know.
it is that like I kind of like got to a point where like I accept all of the responsibility, and then with the family, that family thing too.
Yeah, but do you have that love for like? Is it like?
Yeah, I love her. Like
you're super into her.
I mean, and then I'm gonna tell you this too. I don't believe that like after 15 years of being with somebody, when the last time like your grandparents, do you think they're super in love with each other?
Shit, till they die, brother.
No, what I'm saying is that
were they always like that? Were they
as
always
far as
like
I
that?
knew,
Or did they grow into it?
Because
now my parents know.
You can ask me what's up.
I'm saying, do your mom and dad, they're still together, right?
Yeah.
So do you when you're around them, do they seem like whatever this idea that people are talking about as far as this long term? Does it look like what you think this long term thing actually looks like?
I mean, no, because is it a long term thing that they've made work in their own way? Yes.
No, and
but like, is it what like the idea? Like, I don't know what the ideal picture.
So what you're asking is that healthy, right?
No, it's not.
But
Whether it's healthy or not.
What you're saying is that the most healthy thing.
But no, I'm saying what my parents did. Like, I appreciate them for like as far as
sticking it
for the kid, like as
sure.
the person I am from that. Yes,
facts.
I think that was maybe one of the most beneficial.
There's a lot of ways to look at it.
I got a perfect one. This is one of them questions that's been on the docket for a while, right? So then, what this does throw into? Damn, I'm gonna throw it into it real quick because we gotta get other questions out. But when is it important? Or not even when is it important? When is the time that you know it's time to leave a relationship? What puts you at that spot? When do you know it's time for you to leave a relationship? Because a lot of people also do stay in toxic relationships, and you see that be to the detriment of their kids, be to the detriment of like them as a person. And
I got
it's something to be able to really discern.
Based on what I've seen my parents go through and other people, I'd say whenever you stand in the relationship is not beneficial to the community around whatever that relationship is. So, like, if you're staying there...
Say it again?
Whenever, like, if you're staying there and sacrificing parts of you and it's not for, like, a kid or a family and you're building something, but if you're staying together, even if there is a kid involved, but if you're staying together and it's making you the worst version of yourself and you're creating more harm towards the community, then you may need to step away, but you got to look at it within, not your, like we was talking about pride. You can't look at it within your own ego. You got to look at it within the scope of how does this affect the community? How does this affect my family? And then if in that lens, it's still being toxic, you staying there, then maybe you should remove yourself. But until that point, I think you got to make sacrifices for your community, for your family.
Yeah.
Me personally, because I've seen that. I've seen like what my parents have done and stuff. I've seen other people stick it out, and how it can be. I've seen people stay together and it be detrimental, and maybe you should probably go. So I think that's the point where you got to question it based on like that, not just like what you want or what your partner wants, but you got to look at it through the lens of like your kids and the community.
What you think, Kev? What you think, Jerry?
Yeah, I mean, I like, when do you leave a relationship?
Yeah, because I think that this is a space that as guys, sometimes we get into we don't want to be a villain, but then, like, I'm a person, I've been inside, like, habitual long-term relationships,
right.
But there's spaces when I learned that it's, like, this isn't what would make sense.
Right.
Which is going to be healthy.
I think the most important thing for anybody in any relationship, it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, but are you growing personally, professionally, or financially?
Okay.
Facts.
If anything gets in the way of those...
Or and?
And.
Okay,
I said or, but, you need to grow personally, professionally, financially.
Okay.
When things get in the way of that, that's when you need to question it's about a balance. But like if 80-20, nobody's ever going to be 100% of what you want them to be. But it's like I need this in my life. This is where I'm trying to be. These are our goals. If we have the same amount of goals, if we have the same trajectory, all that stuff. So That's what I look for in if I should be or I should not be in that relationship. But when we're talking about relationships, the thing is it doesn't matter like when you started it or when everybody's frontal lobe is developed. It's communication. I think that's what we were talking about. And the thing is if you communicate at the beginning of it and you communicate and you guys understand, like, you need to find some of that response to how you communicate. So when you say, okay, look, you have to know yourself, and you have to know, like, okay, like, look, I've been in situations with serious people that I've cheated on. I've been in a marriage that I've got cheated on multiple times. You know what I mean? So inevitably, that's going to affect every other relationship that I'm in. Like, my partner right now, like, she's beautiful. She's absolutely beautiful. I can't hold that against her. I can't hold it against her that people are attracted to her, that people are going to, reach out to her, that people are going to holler at her. You know what I'm saying? But what she does is she reassures me that I'm what she wants. And even when I do get triggered, and it can be over small things or it can be over big things, I'm able to talk to her. You know what? She receives it, and she reassures me. Just like any other time that there's a situation, like girls approach me. There's situations like that. I'm honest with her about it. And if she feels some type of way, I listen to her and I reassure her. And that's why it works. Like, I'm not saying that everything is perfect in my relationship, but when there is an issue, I am able to talk about it. And that's some shit that I'm not used to.
Well,
and that's what makes it like, I can have this for the rest of my life.
Sounds like you confront them head on, too.
That's right.
And you don't let them simmer.
Yeah.
You just...
Bro, every time. Like, we fucking lean into it.
Got to.
And that's what works for me, and that's where I'm like, oh my gosh, why doesn't everybody have a relationship like that? But I get it. It's not at that point in everybody's journey.
It took a lot of work. It took a lot of work for you to get there,
right?
And but to go back to the original piece, I think that's a very mature relationship, in which this is why, to go against old head or Rev, I don't really advocate to getting married before, like, specific, like, probably 25, 26, 27, 28. Somewhere, because of, I think that...
I agree.
The tools that I learned at an older age is what makes my relationship healthy. 100%. And, like, I'm the king of toxic 20s relationships. Like, I done been through them all. I can, like, whichever one you want to name, I done did it.
On both sides, right?
Huh?
On both sides.
Yeah, both sides. Right. Like, that's not just her or me. Like
no, I agree. I'm the same way.
Yeah. Like, I done chose really, really bad. I done been the grass is greener guy forever. Like, I done been not vulnerable.
You the one that found that crab grass.
To the shit, like, just being real. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't until I learned that, okay, let me try and be in a relationship. Then B, learn my pitfalls that I actually have in relationships to then learn to correct them. And that's when, boom, all right, now maybe there's a marriage piece in which I can actually really become, like, interested in, because of I'm probably a decent enough partner now.
So let me ask you this. Do you not think that alone that whole thing that you just went through, right? Okay. Do you not think that you could be with somebody when you were younger, right? And then you learn that whole piece with the person. Like, how you can, because, like, at the end of the day, for me, like, I'm still learning. Like, I still today, like, realize.
I'll be honest. Like, if I got married at 22, I would have cheated like fuck on my wife.
I understand that. Like, and I think that's very normal. I think that's very normal.
Right. But I don't want that, and the disrespect that comes with that, to be normal in our relationship.
Understand.
And so for me, like, honestly,
I think that. Go ahead.
I think that it was healthier for me to wait because of, like, at that age, I hadn't known that the grass was weeds over there.
Right.
You didn't see that crab grass.
Right. So, like, I really had to live in real time to learn that. Like, anybody telling me that shit didn't mean a thing to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had to learn certain things, especially relationship wise.
That's like kids when it come to hot. Mama tell you the stove hot, but you don't really understand what hot is until you touch that motherfucker. Yeah. Then you be like, that's hot. I'm not gonna touch it again.
Yeah. So I think that's a good. I think we hit enough sides of that shit.
Well, hold on. Let me just give me a second, real quick. I was just going. And at the end of the day, I get it. At the end of the day, I get it. Like everything you're saying, and then I get it. Everything you're saying, like I get why you would wait. Like in general, like okay, well, I got married. I was in the military, right? So just like the video we was watching earlier, dudes generally get married in the military. You get married early because of it's a lot more beneficial to get married.
Hey, real. Tell them how much more money you get when you married.
It was
like from like 19. That's not, bro. It's not double.
In the video,
no, it's about double. It's
Quinn, bro was in the military. Let him tell it.
Exactly. Hold on. I can tell you the real. I live.
Bro was in the military.
I'm dead.
Damn. In reality, what they do is they pay the average cost of living for it's like, so you get what they call it is E5 BAH. Where I was at, it was like $1,000 extra a month. Like $1,000 extra a month, and it's really based on where you live at. You know what I mean? It's based on the cost of living in the city that you're in. Mm-hmm. So it was like an extra $1,000 a month. You pretty much you ain't have to live on post like you was in dorms in like college. You know what I mean? That's where like if you're not married and you're an enlisted soldier below E6, you're pretty much gonna be in dorms.
Barracks. So
it allows you to be able to get an apartment to stay off post and all this stuff. But that's not. And initially, I ain't even going to fraud it. Like initially, me and my wife, we was going to come to like an arranged marriage. At the same time, I started going through like either way, I ain't got to tell the whole story. We can save that pieces of it for later episodes. But
we listening though.
You in the military, you get married younger, and they have the highest divorce rate as well. And the most cheating. So that's why I said the reason why I said that like. A lot of people, I said like, yeah, nah, that's normal. It's the fact that like when you said that I probably would have cheated on my wife hella times. That is very, very normal in the space that I was in when I was in the military, right?
But then
so that's what I'm saying.
Space that has a high divorce rate.
It absolutely has a high divorce rate.
That means that it's a toxic environment where it leads you to understand that getting married younger is not probably the thing to advocate for most people.
No, I would 100%. I would say that, in my opinion, it's still my opinion to get. I would say getting married younger is still my opinion, and I would say that simply
even
because.
Though
but you wouldn't give. But you wouldn't give that advice.
Based on all the information that you just gave us, like getting married is at a younger age is the right thing to do.
No, I ain't gonna say it's the right thing to do, but I would advocate for it. Which I don't necessarily advocate for marriage in general, because but in my opinion,
he would advocate for it because that's what he did.
No. Actually, no, it's not. It's honestly not why I would advocate for it.
No, but I'm saying, but you
don't see like my bad. I'm gonna let you keep going.
Nah,
it's a contradiction for sure.
Okay, well, just point it out real quick and we can move forward to the next.
No, I'm saying like that's what you would recommend people do, but you don't advocate for it.
No, I don't advocate for marriage in general, but I would advocate for if you do get married, if you're a person to get married, especially for a woman, in my opinion, I think that women should get married younger.
I think women should get married older, bro.
I think. What age?
No, that doesn't make it right.
That is facts. That is facts.
Are we talking the 28 age, or what are we talking?
Yeah, for sure.
We're talking like 28 versus 18 or 19.
Yeah.
No,
I guess we got somebody over here burning to give a commentary.
No,
off Mike Taj.
No, I was gonna say I do think that. Well, I'm a woman, right? Mm-hmm. So I do think that being married later is better. One, because I didn't know who I was when I was younger. Mm-hmm. Right? I had this idea in my head. I had things about myself that I had to accept and change. When you're younger, you don't realize that. Like when you're younger, you just in your head, you're about yourself. Like, can't nobody tell me nothing. I know what I'm doing. Right? So I feel like through life experiences and things like that, and you actually like be like, all right, I need to get my shit together. Like, what's wrong with me to where I can't have like, X, Y, and Z, right? When you fix that, that's later in life. That's not when you're younger. So I don't see how it's beneficial for two partners who are young, or even one who's younger, one's older, how they could have like a very like healthy, intuitive relationship to where communication is at a good point. Because if you guys are both stubborn and you're not willing to accept things about yourself and your partner isn't either, how are y'all going to sit here and have an effective communication? Not to mention things in your childhood that you may not even know how to address, or you're not aware of how it comes out in your actions or things like that. It's kind of like that's where it gets tricky when you're younger, because it's like you're trying to figure yourself out along with figuring out somebody else. That's a lot to do at the same time.
I wouldn't disagree. Okay. I wouldn't disagree. It is hard. Like, and the crazy thing is like now I can see where you taking it as like a inconsistency in what I'm saying, and the crazy thing to me, I agree. Like I understand how hard it is. Like when you say like it's hard to like if you don't know yourself and the other person doesn't know themselves, then how are you actually going to have a productive relationship? Right. I understand that, but the only thing I can say is like based in my experience, we push through all that shit. You know what I mean? And that's the thing where you're I guess that's what it just in my situation specifically, we literally didn't know exactly who we were and literally pushed through it. Even like I said, there was a separation and everything. The separation was actually healthy as well. Came back together stronger. You know what I mean? And then
but you're the
on,
only person
children.
I've ever known that have got separated in.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like,
and props to you. Like, I'm not like downplaying anything that you went through, but I'm saying like you're the only person that I've ever known that has gone through a separation and then got back together. You know, and to me that means that you guys really are that for each other.
An exception to the rule.
And maybe that's probably what that's why I was thinking too. Like that's why I had to bring it back down to tell it. Like maybe that's what it is.
That's where you take yourself out of the situation. But
got you.
Then if you go to the military, and this is what we were saying, like the hypocritical part, and you're citing the fact that statistically they get married younger and the divorce rate is higher than the general public. Yeah. Then okay, you made it through it. You're you're a specific circumstance and exception to the rule.
Absolutely.
But in general, are most people going to get separated and get back together? Are most people going to get cheated on and get back together? Like, these aren't necessarily realistic things that you would expect the average person to go through and get to.
I can agree with that 100%. I can agree with that 100%.
But I say I think Wayne had a question for the boys.
Yeah.
Let's kick it over there.
All right.
So the question I had was, what is it with pride amongst black men that creates a divide amongst us?
What is it about pride that creates a divide? Well, I mean, I know what it is about pride. I mean, it's just hard for us to get over it. As far as black men, or men in general. I ain't gonna say just black men, but I'll just say, because I'm sure there's a lot of white guys or Asians, and a lot of men could probably just relate to the fact that it's hard to get over your pride. Like, as a man, we got all these, like, masculine, toxic masculinity ideals pushed on us. But as far as, like, when it comes to black people, I think it's a little bit of the trauma. As far as, like, we don't, like the pride, like we see what other races and minorities do once they put that pride aside and they come together, and how much the unity they have. But when it comes to black people, I think we have gone through so much. We were the slaves. It's just so much on black people, as far as, like, it's just hard for us to, like, dismiss the history and for us to come together and hold each other accountable. Because we all know, like, the history that we all went through for black people and why we're in the situation we're in. But I think it's more becomes about, like, us putting some of that pride together, especially, like, some of the places like Chicago and some of the gang where the violence is there. It's going to take somebody to, to stop that cycle. There's a lot of cycles that are being perpetuated.
Put the pride to the side.
And at some point, you got to stop the cycle, and you got to put your ego aside and do something for the betterment of the community. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just very hard for black people to do because of the history that we had. Like, no other minority group went through what we went through. We were slaves. Asians weren't slaves. Hispanics weren't slaves. Nobody else dealt with white supremacy the way that black people did. So us going through that, and also the civil rights movement has been gentrified. They done gentrified the struggle. Jeez. A lot of people done took civil rights and they done moved the goalposts. It ain't just about the black struggle no more. So we can't even use civil rights.
Well, really, what you're saying is the fact that statistically the best benefactor of the civil rights movement and affirmative action were white women.
White women. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They gentrified the struggle. So seeing all of that, it's hard for us to put that pride aside. And also, I don't think there's no infrastructure for black people to do that. There's no space where it's safe to put your pride aside and just be a black person and not get ridiculed for it or ridiculed for what you're thinking outside of that. And that's part of the reason why we doing the pod, and we trying to create that infrastructure where it's safe to be a black person, no matter what the fuck you think, no matter, you know, what you believe in. And that's part of where I see that shit, you know, why we can't put our pride aside, because there's no place for us to put our pride other than like on Front Street. There's no infrastructure for us to be safe and black and not prideful.
Germ?
That was dope too. That was dope. And I agree. I think that it was that second part, like, or towards the end that really resonated with me when you was talking about like we don't really have the. It's almost like the what is it? The group think. It's almost that socially we don't see it enough. We don't see where it is even possible. So our whole thing is, oh, you being a bitch, you soft. So it's natural for us to have to, when it comes down to really everything, like it's always this strength thing, and I think that as men it's almost natural that we perpetuate this idea of strength even when
it's not necessary.
It's not
like,
necessary.
Even in situations where us approaching it with like emotional vulnerability might be better, we try to come in and strong arm a situation.
And we haven't seen it. We really haven't seen it. So like, if you think about your dad, like I haven't seen my dad cry before. You know what I mean? Only thing I know is if something happened, he's reactionary, and it's gonna be emotional reaction every time. So he's literally like, that's what I've seen.
But none
and
of that
even
emotion.
like my brother, my older brother, like just look at we are very emotionally charged, reactionary people.
But it's how do we release that emotion? Like, because if
Yeah,
you're talking about you ain't
find
never
other
seen him
ways.
cry, but you say he's acted off emotion, so that means he's been taking that emotion and funneling it to some place that may not be as productive. If you because everybody's emotional. Emotions is human. Like if you're a human being and you're living, you're gonna have emotions. So if you can't funnel that shit into tears sometime, how are you funneling it?
Yeah, I think we really have to be more intentional, and I like that word. We use that every show. We have to be more intentional about showing how it is that you handle conflict, or not even just conflict. How you express emotion in general. It's not something that we see a lot of, at least just growing up in like my household. Like, yeah, I didn't see a lot of, well, hell, Pops wasn't there. I had my older brother. He was literally like more of he had a point to prove all the time. He wanted to prove to you that he was the guy. And we overcompensate a lot. The ego forces us to overcompensate, and yeah, I don't really know. I don't know how say it again.
Well, no, I just got one thing, and then I'm gonna shut up. But like what Jeff said last week about how he let his son, like he don't treat his daughter no different than his son, and like when his son want to cry and lay on him too, and he let him express that emotions. That's part of like when the next generation allowing black men to be vulnerable and not have that pride, and it's okay to cry, it's okay to express your emotions, it's okay to have emotions and to naturally express them. And I think that's one thing he said last week that really spoke to me or resonated with me as far as like raising black men and having that space and that infrastructure for black men to be vulnerable just like any other race, anybody else is vulnerable.
And I think it's just really important for us as black men to be there with these black boys growing up. Like that, I think that is like a lot of it. I think that's a big part of it. Allowing our kids to see us grow as well as men, especially black man child.
I think that it's a nuanced thing, right? I think that pride is a very important piece, especially to instill inside black boys. I think that a pride of who you are, of where you're going, who you're going to be, and what has came before is something that is not necessarily readily pushed in a common narrative as it comes to black men. I think that that's very, very, very important. Not to be overly prideful is also another piece to that nuance, right? But so I'm gonna start at A. So A is like be prideful. I do think that it is important because of you want to make sure that your kid in any room feels comfortable being themselves and who they are genuinely, not a facade, not some fake shit, not catering to whatever, you know what I mean, the status quo is saying, but being prideful that who I am is enough. I think that point is a very, very, very valid one, right? I think that it is also important that in the nuanced sense that not to be prideful inside spaces in which is not necessary. So now when we get into interpersonal relationships, where that's not really the most important thing, and your pride can have you hearing things, seeing things, and doing things differently than what it needs to be and what it was intended. And I think that that's something to differentiate. That it's really, really important that if you're like if you're inside, whatever you're interpersonal, like we friends, I got to strip my pride aside sometimes when you tell me a critique. I can't be prideful because now I'm not hearing what the actual critique is. You know what I'm saying? Again, I have to have pride in myself to be able to like honor who I am as a person and understand that, okay, boom, I'm better than that. But the prideful part is that you either gonna think that every person that gives you critique is a hater or they're giving you like fruitful advice. And that's the line where you got to be able to grow. And I think that being able to differentiate is probably maybe that's like where my point starts at. Sits at. Make sure you're able to differentiate when you're being of pride and prideful.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I think Wayne got something else.
And I guess a question would be, when does pride get in the way of progression?
When does pride get in? Well, I think that's an easy one. I mean, well, I ain't gonna say it's an easy, simple maybe. Like he said, it's simple. This thing is simple and easy. But I think pride gets in the way in the way of progression. Like we can see it within like our politics. Like why do black people continue like why are we the same way, knowing that the way that we have been for the last 20, 30, 40 years isn't working for us? We've been voting Democrat and ain't nothing changed. So like that pride, that's when it becomes, that's when it gets in the way of progression.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so I think that's a good place to put a little pin in it.
Put a pin in it.
You want to throw to them positive takeaways?
We can't. I ain't got one yet, but
no, I got one.
All right, go ahead.
So my positive takeaway is
don't stop.
Nah, we keep.
I think that because like, and it's crazy. Like this goes back to the conversation we just had. Because you're in a certain situation, or because you have to accept certain things, does not mean that this is something that is acceptable. Or because, how do I say this? I'm trying to think of a better way to say it. It's more like the idea of the dad bod. So we popularized the dad bod simply because that's where the majority of the men are. That doesn't mean that this is what is the healthy thing to do. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like we'll literally start to popularize negative things because that's where we are, and it pretty much teaches. It's a negative way to teach the generations to come. Mm-hmm. It's almost like just.
You're not just right because it apply to you.
Yeah, it's like just because the shoe fits, you'll literally make the shoe the problem instead of the actual issue is that it's you.
Gotcha.
You at least that's
Niggas be having flat feet and shit.
My positive takeaway, I think that it's healthy for every family.
Somebody say some dumb shit.
Buy a juicer. I think that. Listen, my lady, she bought a juicer.
You fuck
fresh produce. Have you ever had apple juice straight from the apples? That shit fire. I'm not gonna hold you. Listen, as a single man, I never thought to do some shit like that, to drink healthy and eat healthy and all that shit. Shout out to all the good women that's out there wherever you at.
Buying them men juices.
Niggas appreciate your good woman. But yeah, hey, listen, black community, every community, go buy a fucking juicer. That shit doesn't take a lot and it tastes good as shit. That's my positive takeaway from the week. I've been drinking like organic apple juice.
We've been drinking that fresh, that pure pressed apple juice.
Yeah. Hey, Kev, you got a positive takeaway?
Just in life, or
we go for the week.
For the week, you know, I think my positive takeaway is try to stay as neutral as you can.
Okay.
So like, there's always going to be some wild shit that pops up, and there's going to be some like mundane shit that happens, you know. But when we look at it over the course of, like, if we're looking at annually or whatever, it's going to be a positive progression. You know, there's going to be ups and downs, you know. But when we zoom out, just do the best you can, make the most, you know, logical responses to anything that you have going on. Drink your apple juice.
There you go.
Your fresh squeezed apple
juice.
Yeah.
Big Newton.
Shit, my positive takeaway would just be, like I said, we got Kev here today. I have, you know, I continuously have conversation with people of different walks of life, and I see more of the sentiment of people being people and everybody seeing the humanity, like that we're all 99.9% the same. You know, and that outside of all this black shit, outside of, you know, white people, Hispanic people, Asian people, we all humanity. And I've seen a lot of, you know, humanity doing this thing over the, you know, the last week. So that'd be my positive takeaway. That's all I got. I'd say this was the To Be Fair show. I'm your host, Johnny P.
Old Head Real.
It's Q.
And Kev.
Like, comment, subscribe below.
Yep.
And we out.
Yeah, be blessed,
right.
family.